Grace and peace to you from him who was, and who is to come, Christ the Lord. Our text today from 1 Corinthians 2:14, these words, "The natural person does not accept the things of the Spirit. He's not able to understand them because they are spiritually discerned." That'll be our text. Brothers and sisters, I have a question for you. Do you think that mental telepathy exists in the world? I remember hearing a theologian, it was some years ago, suggest that things like ESP or telekinesis, moving things with your mind, or mind reading, perhaps could be remnants from the fall. That maybe in that brief, perfect world before the fall of man, that these things existed in full, but that now there are remnants, there are pieces, perhaps, that still remain. What about zoolingualism? Talking to animals. You think that happens? I mean, think about it before sin. A snake comes slithering up to Eve in the Garden of Eden and starts talking, and she starts talking back. Like that's no big deal. Does that still happen? Because I don't know about you, but if Kaa from the movie Jungle Book came slithering up to me with his big buggy eyes calling me a man cub, I'm out of here. I don't think so. But what if I were to suggest that, and I don't like to publicize this at all, but what if I were to tell you that I have the gift of mental telepathy, that I can read your minds? You don't believe me, do you? I will show you. So here's what I want you to do. I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and just think about it in your mind. Don't think very hard. Don't say it out loud. Just think through it in your mind. And I'll show you how I can read your mind. Here we go. What color is a stop sign? Red. What color is a cherry? Red. What color is a fire truck? Red. Now, think of a number between 1 and 50, but it has to be two numbers, and they both have to be odd numbers. Got it? How many of you have a number picked? Okay, those of you that have raised your hands, you are thinking of the number 37. How many? Pretty amazing, isn't it? It's actually not, and I'll tell you why. It's not mental telepathy at all. It's just subtly moving your brain to go to a place where I would like your brain to go. And it happens everywhere around us in the world today. You see it in advertising, you see it in politics, you see it in social media. And so when I begin by having you think about three things that have the color red, it's a primer between left brain, right brain. And so while your brain is picturing a red stop sign, you're picturing the color on your right brain. In your left brain, you're actually thinking of the word red, which has 3 letters. And so without even thinking of it, and that was one of the instructions, don't think too hard. So if you followed the instruction, you picked 37. If you followed the instruction and didn't think too hard, then I moved you to think of a number in the 30s, because I told you to pick 2 numbers, and that both numbers had to be odd numbers. But even then, by saying both numbers have to be odd numbers, that simple mental cue made you not pick 33, because that's the same number, and I asked you to pick 2 odd numbers. Most people will then pick in succession, not backwards, so that eliminates number 31, because that's going backwards. So for many of you, I left you with 3 options: 35, 37, and 39. And your brain, without thinking, instinctively will pick the one in the middle, 37, because the brain doesn't like to go to the extremes, even when you're not thinking about it. 37. It's not foolproof. Somebody in the early service said they picked 49. Well, that's not two odd numbers. So it's just influencing your brain to think a certain way. It's just kind of a natural guess as to how the brain might function. It's not supernatural. It's actually quite natural. And so when St. Paul writes, the natural person does not accept the things of the Spirit, he's not able to understand them because they are spiritually discerned, there is within all of us, and we still possess to this day, these natural inclinations. In our theology, we call that the old Adam in us. In our baptismal theology, we borrow the picture language of Martin Luther when he says we should daily drown the old Adam. Because those are the things that are within us that are not pleasing to God. That's how we're born, natural inclinations. And because it's not pleasing to God, then it becomes destructive, not only to us, not only to the people that we love, but even to the world around us, depending on what they are, to a large degree. So tomorrow I begin what unfortunately has become an annual journey to recalibrate my metabolism. I am naturally inclined to have a physical addiction to carbohydrates. And it usually shows up in, like, pizza. I will eat pizza to an excess. Give me one of those hot and readies, I can down most of it. Pizza and breads. I love breads. And sweet snacks and ice cream and Christmas cookies. I love to consume those things, even to the point of excess, even though I know that it wrecks my energy and my outlook. The natural me doesn't want to give up these things, not at all. But there's that spiritual discernment that God has given me, you, all of us in our baptisms, right? So we have the capacity now to think better about the things of God. And so these two things are at war, and it's a daily war. In the Lutheran Church, we don't talk a lot about fasting. It was our whole Old Testament reading today. Because it's not natural. It's not natural to deny yourself of the things that naturally would give you pleasure. It's just not part of our natural makeup, because it's above nature. Because it's above nature, it's supernatural. And so when we enter into those supernatural things, we begin to understand better. This is what this text is about. Understand better the things of God and what He wants for us. The discipline of self-denial is a mark of a disciple. Jesus said it. If anyone wants to come after me, he must deny himself, pick up his cross, and follow. To the world, denying yourself of the things that bring you pleasure is a bunch of hooey. Because those things are natural. And because the person that doesn't have Christ, that doesn't have the things of the Spirit, none of that makes sense. Paul acknowledges this very thing. It doesn't make sense. And so it's a war. It's a daily battle within us. It's not mental telepathy. And it happens all the time. You can actually influence your brain to go to places you want it to go. This is what we do. But do you know that you can actually not convince your brain to not think of something? Don't picture in your minds right now a dog howling. You just did, didn't you? Tell somebody who suffers from anxiety, stop being anxious. What happens? They get more anxious. Focusing on the negative intensifies the negative. Paul knows about this, St. Paul. You hear me quote this verse a lot from this pulpit. Philippians 4. Here's what he says. Whatever is good, right, noble, pure, admirable, excellent, or praiseworthy, think about those things, because those things are supernatural. It's not natural to think about those things. You know what's natural to think about? Everything that's ugly and everything that's awful and all of the obstacles that are before us. That's what's natural. So picture in your minds a downhill skier. The ones that ski through the trees. And those of us who don't ski, we don't get that. I don't get that. I'm not a skier. How is it that they don't smack into a tree? Because what I would think of when I'm skiing downhill is, don't hit the tree, don't hit the tree, don't hit the tree. What's going to happen? I'm going to hit the tree. But you know how they do it? They look for the path. Find the path, find the path, find the path. And you know what happens? They can find the path. When all we see are obstacles, that's all we're going to encounter, are obstacles. Jesus says, look this way. The way that Jesus wants us to look, it's not natural. Let us fix our eyes on Jesus, Hebrews says, the author and perfecter of our faith. I love this passage in Luke 9, verse 51. Jesus fixed his eyes toward Jerusalem because he knew that we didn't have the capacity on our own to save ourselves, and there was nothing that could distract him from Jerusalem. The cross. And that's what he saw. That's not natural. To be able to look and to find Jesus. If all we see are Jesus and life around us, where's Jesus? Where's Jesus? You know what we're going to see? We're going to see more of Jesus. That's supernatural. You have that capacity now because you have the things of the Spirit through the waters of your baptism. You know, I've been thinking these last 3 years, because we're coming up on the 3-year anniversary here of lockdowns and things like that, and I've been thinking that our lives have been significantly altered in so many different ways. And yet, when you think about it, you're still the same person that you were before this all began. You still have the same joys that are unique to you. There's things that bring you joy that may not others. That hasn't changed. The same things you struggle with, the battles you face, even the addictions that you have, they're probably still there. Maybe even through this whole pandemic, even more intensified than before. All those things are natural. But you're still you. You still pray for the same things that you have before. Those things that are unique to your journey in Christ, those natural inclinations, they're still there. The same addictions and temptations are still there. You still pray for the same thing that you did before, the thing or the person, and you keep praying and you're wondering if God is even listening to you at all. And if he is listening, what in the world is he doing? Those things are natural to think about because those natural inclinations are still there. Let me tell you what's supernatural. Let me tell you what's above nature. To come to the realization in your life and in your faith, Jesus not only loves you, likes you. Yes, he likes you. You who eat too much pizza. You who watch too much TV, each time playing video games. To excess. Those of you who lose your temper a lot quicker than you would like to. Or those of you who find yourself going too far into a bottle too often. See, but Jesus loved you enough to not want to leave you there. And that knowledge, and so by nature, it's a battle. Brothers and sisters, keep fighting that good fight of faith to the very end. Keep denying yourself, picking up that and following Jesus. I'm there with you. Loving the Lord and reading your minds. Amen. And now may the peace of God, which is beyond our understanding, guard and keep your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus to life everlasting. Amen.